Live in the studio for the celebration. Stick around for our favorite clips and a few surprises later in the show. I'm Christy Paul.
And I'm Michael Honest. You're watching On the Story.
Mom? Dad? Uncle Frank? Buzz?
All right, that's a scene from the movie Home Alone 2, Macaulay Culkin's character flying alone. That's a movie. But in real life, we do worry about putting our kids on a plane alone, and we have a travel nightmare for a 7- and 9-year-old. Brother and sister traveling alone. Here's what happened. They're set to take a nonstop flight, Des Moines to Orlando. The flight's diverted to Atlanta, and because of bad weather, it's canceled. So now they've got to spend the night in a hotel. The 9-year-old boy has to sleep in the same bed as a 14-year-old boy who he just met. Carter and Etta Gray's parents, they're furious. Big questions out of this. Did the airline screw up here? Was this just an unforeseen circumstance? And what should you know if your child is flying alone? We have some tips for you in just a bit. But joining us right now, Chad Gray. He's the father of those two kids. Also with us, Alan Armstrong. He's an aviation attorney, pilot as well. We'll lean on his expertise in a moment. But Chad, I'll start with you. What were your emotions when you found out what your little ones went through?
Yeah, great question, and thanks again for having me. You know, the emotions were running really high. I think, you know, the most important thing, you wanted to be able to be there and protect your children at that case, and not being in control of that situation. We started to get really irate, you know, not only because we weren't able to handle anything, we weren't able to be there for Carter and Etta, but not having any communication from the airline at this point. I mean, your frustrations levels are starting to rise.
Gotcha. Well, let me read you Frontier Airlines statement, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the communication you receive, what they're saying as well. Here it is. The children were attended to at all times by a Frontier supervisor, placed in a hotel room overnight, and provided with food. Our records show that the children were in contact with their mother before being transported to the hotel, and with their father the following morning before leaving on the continued flight. So let's lay out the communication. From what we gather, your 9-year-old boy finally gets I think he uses the cell phone of another kid, another unaccompanied minor who had to stay at the hotel. Lets you know after midnight. I think you get a text about 4 o'clock as they're checking into a hotel. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And real quick, what about, did mom know and you maybe didn't in a mix-up there?
No, Mom and I were communicating and going back and forth from the texts I received from Carter to let them know that they were checking in at a hotel. We didn't have any other information of how they were getting that hotel, who was staying with them in the room, you know, what the sleeping arrangements were going to be. And so we were kind of as clueless as much as the children were. The children kept texting us saying they didn't know what was going to happen next. Got it.
Okay, so on Frontier's side, and we have a poll, by the way. We're asking, whose side are you on, Frontier Airlines or Dad? And 76% of the folks, they're with you on this one. But Frontier's side, if I'm going to paraphrase, is, you know, they tried. They went hotel instead of having your children just stay the night at the airport. A supervisor was with them at all time. That they did the best they could in a situation that rarely happens. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if they did the best they should or could, they shouldn't have left it up to a 7- or 9-year-old to contact their parents to let them know what was going on and what processes were going to take place. And then really to how they got to the hotel in the first place, they drove in a personal vehicle of a Frontier Airlines employee. I feel should never have happened, and at least we should have been given the chance to make that decision on whether we wanted them to go to a hotel or stay, you know, in the airport and sleep on a cot.
Gotcha. So bottom line, you wished a Frontier representative would have called you as soon as they knew, hey, we're going to be staying the night in Atlanta. Is that right?
Absolutely. It takes, you know, 1 to 2 minutes to make a phone call. And not only one phone call would have been nice. I feel like multiple phone calls should have been, you know, made to either Jennifer, their mother, or myself. Just let us know what was going on. Let us know that, hey, the flight has been canceled. We're trying to get your kids on a flight the next day. Hey, what are your thoughts about taking them to a hotel? What are your thoughts about sleeping with, you know, 4 other children that they've never met before? And so that all would have been very nice to know coming from a Frontier Airlines employee, not a 9-year-old.
Gotcha. Did you guys ever talk about giving your children a cell phone, even if not for good, maybe just for the travel experience in case something happened?
Jennifer and I have spoken to that, before this incident occurred. What is the right age to have, for a child to have a cell phone? I don't know what the right answer is to this, but never in our wildest dreams did we think that this would happen. We put them on this Frontier flight because it was a direct flight from Des Moines to Orlando. And so the probability of something going wrong and getting diverted and going to another city and having to spend the night just was really not even in our wildest dreams. And even the paperwork that we signed, as an unaccompanied minor for Carter and Etta had nothing in the terms and conditions about what happens if a flight is diverted and it has to stay overnight. So I don't even think Frontier Airlines has even thought about this process.
Got it. Hey, real quick, are you thinking of any kind of recourse, legal action? What do you want to see happen?
I'll let Alan answer that question. I think the biggest thing for us as parents and moving forward for other parents is really trying to get a set, policy and procedures in place, not only for Frontier, but for the airline industry as a whole. Gotcha. I think every airline has different policies, when it comes to this type of situation. Got it.
Hey, Chad, thanks again. Hope the kids are doing okay.
Thank you.
Let's talk to Alan Armstrong. Alan, aviation attorney. Right. And you're very familiar with the family situation. What could Frontier have done better from your vantage point?
Not dispatch the aircraft to close the ground stopping. They weren't going to make it. There were thunderstorms all around the airport, 40 other flights diverted. You're not going to get in there.
So you say the mistake was made in Des Moines, Iowa, when they thought they were going to get to Orlando.
The decision to dispatch the flight.
Okay, so that's one point that you make. Okay, now we're in Atlanta, and you realize, weather is going to keep us here overnight. What should be the procedure to let mom and dad know you've got little ones in Atlanta to make sure everybody's safe and feels secure?
There should be a communication process whereby the airline contacts the parents. You look at the DOT publications on the subject, there are no regulations on this. None.
Gotcha.
It's an airline by airline situation.
All right. I want to listen to, this is Bobby Laurie, flight attendant, takes Frontier's side, basically says they did nothing wrong. Let's listen to that, and then we'll get your take coming out.
At other airlines, the airline may have just left the children at the airport in a crew lounge or in a flight attendant lounge and let them stay there overnight. And arriving at the Atlanta airport at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's very limited food options. So taking them to a hotel, making them more comfortable, giving them a bed to sleep on for the night, in my opinion, was the right thing for them to do. Because you could have left them at the airport and you would have had crew members in and out all night long. There would not have been one guaranteed guardian over these children.
Got it. Again, that's a flight attendant who's saying Frontier did the best they could, basically. And you say, your take is that there needs to be better procedures in place for everybody.
Communications and procedures. There's no communication and there are no procedures. They made it up as they went along. It's just ad hoc.
Got it. Especially with 7- and 9-year-olds.
Exactly.
Understand that.
Right.
Hey, Chad, you still there? How are your kids doing? They still talk about the situation?
They still do. They're wondering why they're getting so much attention, and we've tried to really kind of hide them from this attention. I think the biggest thing now is they realize that they should never have been put in this situation. I think that they were concerned when it was happening and a little frightened and scared. But now they just they want to move on with their lives or attending a new school next year. And so I think the biggest thing for them is they are healthy, and it was kind of a wild night and a wild the next day for them. But the main priority for them is obviously their health. But they are doing fine now. So
Gotcha.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we just showed that poll. It's on Facebook if you want to weigh in. Decide young. Did Frontier do enough? You with Dad on this right now? 3/4 of you say you're with Dad. Alan, real quick, about a legal case?
We're exploring options. Yeah. No comment at this time.
All right. So exploring options. Let's bring in Joey Jackson, our HLN legal analyst, great criminal defense attorney. Joey, what do you think? You see a case here?
I really do. I think it's problematic. And let me just go back to the flight attendant's point, right, Bobby Laurie? I do agree that I think the employees acted responsibly. They acted reasonably. They ensured that these children were well taken care of and they got sleep and they were well fed. That's beyond the point. The fact is that there should be protocols in place. What about the peace of mind of the parents, right? What about the fact that the parents have no idea what's happening with their children and just want a phone call, right? Just want something in place to say, hey, look, weather patterns developed. As a result of those weather patterns, this is what we're doing. Everything's going to be okay. With your permission, we're going to do step 1, go to the hotel. Step 2, make sure they're fed properly. Step 3, get them out in the morning, and we'll all be okay. Had that been in place, we wouldn't be speaking about it. And so I think the time to develop protocols is prior to it happening. And I think the value in any lawsuit is to ensure moving forward that systems are in place to make sure that a 9 and a 7-year-old and any other unaccompanied minor are taken care of properly. So I have big problems with the way in which not the employees who did the right thing in their personal vehicle, but the way in which the management, completely dropped the ball here.
All right, well, Joe, and it sounds like you and Alan are both of the same mindset. There should be more communication. We'll keep on this one as the family explores options. We'll see what else Frontier Airlines has to say, as their vantage point is they did nothing wrong through all this. So let's wrap this up by saying, if you are a parent, family member, you're going to put your kids on a flight alone, what should you need to know? We've got some pictures here for you and some tips as this all plays out. Number 1, call the airline ahead of time. Know the procedures that you're getting into. Like for Frontier Airlines, know that it's $110 basically for an unaccompanied minor each way, and what you get for that. I mean, they're going to basically give your kids, I'm paraphrasing here, an escort to and from the gate, monitoring during the flight and things like that. And also try and book a morning flight, so in case there are any snafus, then you're going to have an opportunity maybe to make alternate plans. They can get on another flight and not have to spend the night, let's say, at an airport. Also, when you look at other tips, and I asked Dad about this, but a lot of experts say get your child a cell phone. Have the argument about whether or not they're ready for a cell phone at a different time. This is for safety, just for the trip. Have a cell phone ready to go. Maybe one of those pay-as-you-go models as well. Also, print out a contact sheet. Obviously, mom and dad's information on there, and the complete list of names, numbers, addresses of people who are going to be picking your child up at the airport. And finally, make sure your child knows the itinerary so they are in the know about what the day should look like, and if things go awry, how do you handle a situation? How do you handle an emergency situation? In a case like this, what do you do if they're telling you you're going to have to spend the night somewhere? To make sure you call mom and dad or insist an adult does that. So there's some tips for you. And again, you can weigh in. Whose side are you on? Frontier Airlines or Dad? Right now, 3/4 of you with Dad. Keep weighing in.